our resident representative of UNDP, to give us a remark. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Angela Lusigi with us this morning, because since she arrived a few weeks ago, this is her first physical event with us, and the UNDP country office is very happy to have her for the launch of this important report. So please join me to welcome Dr. Angela Lusigi to give us the opening remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Praise. I'll have to take off my mask because my eyes are already fogging up. Professor Samuel Kobina Anim, the representative of the National Planning Commission, distinguished colleagues in academia, civil society, and the media, members of the diplomatic corps, and of course, fellow colleagues. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed my great pleasure to warmly welcome you to this event as part of our global launch of the UNDP's Human Development Report 2020 on the special theme, The Next Frontier, Human Development and the Anthropocene. We all will have to learn that word. I note that many of you are joining us online because, of course, the festive season is already upon us. This is a time we all travel, out of town, celebrate with family and friends, and also enjoy time with nature. This means that our event today, which speaks about people, the planet, and prosperity, is quite timely. Let me begin by recognizing that this year marks the 30th anniversary of the first Human Development Report and the introduction of the Human Development Index. This Human Development Index was created to steer discussion about development away from income per capita, which is a mythical figure of what national wealth would be like if it was distributed equally. And instead, human development is seen as expanding people's capabilities, choices, and opportunities. And the Human Development Index captures what people can do and are able to do by focusing on three critical dimensions: living a long and healthy life, that's being free of disease, of course, but also having good nutrition and access to water and sanitation. It also looks at access to knowledge, not just education, also access to information and our indigenous knowledge systems. And finally, the third dimension is about a decent standard of living, so that you have resources to be able to have a roof over your head and other needs. And over time, the index has evolved to account for inequalities in all these three dimensions, including gender-based inequalities, because it's not just about human progress for some, it's about human progress for all. And this year, for the first time, the report will consider how human activity has an impact on the natural systems that we all depend on for our survival. And our event today will focus on the reality in Ghana. It builds on the important work done by Professor Samuel Anim and his team at the Ghana Statistical Service, who have recently completed the first national report on multidimensional poverty. And the good news is that the share of Ghanaians living in poverty has fallen. Between 2011 and 2018, the proportion of Ghanaians facing deprivations in education, health, and living standards at the same time fell from 55% to 48%. And some regions, such as the North, experienced the greatest improvement. However, despite this progress, we know that environmental degradation and climate change is creating new challenges that disproportionately affect the poor. In 2017, for instance, environmental degradation cost the Ghanaian society up to $6.3 billion, which is equivalent to 10.7% of GDP. And by 2030, it's estimated up to 400,000 additional people could fall into poverty because of climate change. This is important because Ghana's people and the economy still rely heavily on natural resources for jobs, livelihoods, and services. While we do celebrate the fact that our new planetary adjusted index shows only a small overall loss from human development when we look at carbon emissions and material consumption, however, given Ghana's ambitious transformation agenda and accelerated development path, now is the time to make the right choices for equitable and lasting prosperity for all people across generations. And these choices are also critical when we think about having a robust recovery from COVID-19. We shall only know the full impact of COVID-19 on human development when we look at the 2021 Human Development Report. However, we've projected as early as 2020 that Ghana is likely to experience a reversal in human development for the first time in 30 years. And businesses and employers in Ghana have been hard hit by COVID. The recent COVID-19 business tracker shows that up to 46% of businesses reported a reduction in wages for 26% of the total workforce. And this is significant as it translates into a wage reduction for an estimated 770,000 workers. And of course, we applaud the commitment by the government to a comprehensive response to COVID-19 as covered in the Ghana Cares program. And we know that this is a 3-year plan to revitalize local businesses and transform the economy to accelerate our progress towards Ghana Beyond Aid, which is why our report today is important. And the discussion today will showcase bold actions that could be leveraged to accelerate not only Ghana's recovery from COVID-19, it will also help to build resilience to future shocks because they are coming. I look forward to hearing from our presenters and discussants today about what choices will put Ghana on the path to inclusive, equitable, and sustainable human development and peaceful societies. I hope to hear about practical opportunities to engage and partner with the government, citizens, academia, media, and development partners to advance Ghana's own development agenda. Most importantly, as UNDP, I look to deepen our collaboration in the strategic areas that will help to expand human development for all towards the next frontier. We remain committed to deepening our integrated support to strengthening governance, environmental sustainability, and economic transformation so that both people and the planet can thrive now and for generations to come. Thank you for your kind attention, and I wish us all fruitful deliberations.
Thank you very much, Angela, for that powerful remark. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to take our second remark. And we all know that in Ghana, we have only one mandated national institution that oversees statistical reports. The Ghana Statistical Service often produces a lot of credible data to inform policy decisions. Today, we are honored to have the government statistician in our midst, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim. Prof, we are very grateful for honoring our invitation. We know how difficult it is for you to be here today. Thank you for joining us. So please join me, welcome Prof, to give us his remark.
Thank you, Praise. Dr. Lusigi, permit me to take advantage of the protocol and generalize the greetings in the interest of time. So, colleagues, I am particularly delighted to be part of this engagement. I know the main reason why I've been called upon to do this remark is because of my work with Ghana Statistical Service. But indeed, it goes beyond that. Once I saw the invitation letter, I recalled my early days in my graduate classroom when we were being taken through how Amartya Sen conceptualized the Human Development Index. And so soon we are talking about it 30 years down the line. Again, I'm particularly delighted with the transformation that we've seen with the Human Development Index, especially when it started with, as was mentioned earlier on by Dr. Lusigi, and given that as a country we don't have very rigorous processes for measurement. In the context of environment, there's an opportunity, as was mentioned earlier on, for us to think about how we can get an accurate sense of contextualizing environmental challenges in a way that if we adjust our HDI, we'll see that we have a good context of our Human Development Index. Indeed, at Ghana Statistical Service, we are proud of such an engagement. I know that for purposes of comparability, we rely on international agencies like UNESCO, the World Bank, to provide data that is used in computing the HDI. But the source data is Ghana Statistical Service, is national statistical agencies. We call this particular year as a critical year for Ghana Statistical Service because but for COVID-19, we would have gone into the national census. Let me hold on the discussion on the national census and give some more relevance on what we do at Ghana Statistical Service to inform the kind of work that has been presented. In Dr. Lusigi's presentation, she mentioned what we saw from the business point of view. In addition to the business tracker, we are two other trackers, specifically the household and job tracker and the local economy tracker. Ladies and gentlemen, from the household tracker, we saw findings that, as was indicated, we are likely to see a reversal in the progress of our HDI. A number of people lost wages, and if you look at this from the total population point of view, based on the households from which people lost wages, 22 million Ghanaians were affected by the loss of wages. So this is directly going to impact on our third component of the HDI, which is the GNI per capita. Let me take advantage again and share with you, because just this morning, I've had the pleasure to release the third quarter GDP figure, and for the second time in a row as a country, we see a contraction of 1.1%. In the second quarter of the year, we saw a contraction of 3.2%, and now for the third quarter, July to September 2020, we are seeing a contraction of 1.1%. So definitely this is going to impact adversely, and as was said, possibly a reversal in the progress that we're seeing in our HDI index. The second thing that we saw from the household job tracker was the fact that 3 out of every 10 children, missed out of vaccination. If this is not tackled and tackled aggressively, it's going to impact on life expectancy. 30% of children during COVID-19 era missed out of their vaccination. And the third component, we realized that about 35% of our children at the basic school level and 28% of our children at the SHS level did not engage in any form of learning during the COVID-19 era. This is also likely to affect the third component, which is schooling. So definitely the statistics that we are producing out there is something that we need to pay particular attention to moving forward. I'm particularly happy that the government remains committed to ensuring that Ghana Statistical Service has the resources, and with the partnerships that we are receiving from our development partners, specifically GIZ, UNDP, the World Bank, UNICEF, that helped us tackle upfront COVID-19 challenges will be sustained. Now the game changer, which is the census. This is where I take the last 2 minutes to emphasize on the collaboration that we need moving forward. We're going to miss out on the decennial census because of COVID-19, but thankfully the President announced in the month of October that April and May 2021, we've scheduled that for data collection for the census. COVID-19 has posed challenges, but in the wake of that, we are capitalizing on some newness in the approaches that we're going by that. We are harnessing geospatial data, and again, I'm hoping that we'll be in the position to use environmental resources to equip what we do. The uniqueness of the 2021 data from an environment point of view is what it does in the area of sanitation. Unlike the housing component that we had from the 2010, now from 2020, we're going to get data that would help us better understand, for instance, how you distinguish between the interface and the containment of the toilet facilities that we use. For people who do not have toilet facilities in their houses, where do they use as their point of disposal? This is the richness of the data that we are bringing to the fore as far as the 2021 population and housing census is concerned. We take this opportunity to congratulate UNDP on this effort, and we are looking forward that this analysis will be utilized and serve as the benchmark data as we go forward to analyze the multidimensional poverty index from the census data. It is indeed refreshing to say that we've included insurance, health coverage as part of the questions moving into the 2021 population and housing census. So clearly this collaboration is needed, and once again, I wish you all an instructive engagement, and we hope to see the report inform our policy decisions. Thank you.
very much, Prof. Shall we give it up to him again? Okay, at this juncture, we are going to watch a short video that gives us the highlights of the report. After that, we invite Mugisha to present the findings to us. Daniel, please.
The COVID-19 pandemic is the latest crisis facing the world, but may not be the last. UNDP's 2020 Human Development Report reveals that for the first time in 300,000 years, instead of the planet shaping humanity, humanity is shaping the planet. Ghana's Human Development Index value for 2019 is 0.611. This puts Ghana in the medium human development category, positioning it at 138 out of 189 countries and territories. When Ghana's value is discounted for planetary pressures, the country's HDI falls from the current 0.611 to 0.601, a loss of 1.6%. And when discounted for inequality, the HDI for Ghana falls to 0.440, a loss of. The COVID-19 pandemic is the latest crisis facing the world, but may not be the last. UNDP's 2020 Human Development Report reveals that for the first time in 300,000 years, instead of the planet shaping humanity, humanity is shaping the planet. Ghana's Human Development Index value for 2019 is 0.611. This puts Ghana in the medium human development category, positioning it at 138 out of 189 countries and territories. When Ghana's value is planetary pressures, the country's HDI falls from the current 0.611 to 0.601, a loss of 1.6%. And when discounted for inequality, the HDI for Ghana falls to 0.440, a loss of 28.0%. Discounted for gender-based inequalities, the HDI for Ghana falls to 0.538, a loss of 11.9%. The report identifies 3 building blocks to create real lasting progress for all humanity. 1. Scaling up nature-based solutions like reforestation and improved forest management to increase productivity. 2. Promoting incentives like investing in renewable energy and implementing the Paris Agreement to accelerate climate resilience. 3. Reorienting social norms and values to empower people to live and work in ways that reduce pressure on the planet. As Ghana implements its comprehensive response to COVID-19 through the Ghana Cares program, addressing the gaps would lead to a fairer and more sustainable future for all Ghanaians.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we got a gist of it, even though we did not get a sound from the beginning. At this moment, I think we've reached the moment that we've all been looking forward to. We are here to launch a report, and it's important for us to know the findings of the report. So it's my greatest honor to invite Dr. Frederick Mugisha, the economic advisor of UNDP, to give us the highlights of the 2020 UNDP Human Development Report. Let's welcome Doc, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will make a presentation. I will give a little bit of context to what you saw in the video, and then we'll usher in some discussion for all of us. Next slide. So the Human Development Report is looking forward and is giving us the opportunity that indeed we can shape the future in the choices that we make, but also in the investments that we make. And the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, and now the Ghana Cares program that is trying to accelerate Ghana Beyond Aid is actually also looking at the future and trying to say, look, as Ghanaians, we can shape our destiny. And those two are very important parallels to the report. So 2020 will probably be remembered for COVID-19. Globally, Angela explained that for the first time, we are likely to see a reduction in Human Development Index since the measurement of the Human Development Index started 30 years ago. And the government statistician has also explained to us some of the indications that are already coming in. So it is possible, as we measure for human development for 2020 for Ghana, it's likely that we also have a dip. And you already know Ghana Cares program, where indeed the idea was the fact that there was contraction in the economy, but also other aspects of human life. Now, this is how Ghana has performed since 1990. We have been on a positive trajectory up to 2019. We will discover indeed what will, just before I will discover what happened in 2020 once the data becomes available and the estimations are done. But for now, we have been on a positive trajectory. And the three components that Angela explained, the life expectancy, education, the income per capita, those have also been at upward trend. And you can see for education, actually we have moved quite fast in terms of the components of the Human Development Report. Next slide. So this report is basically looking at the aspect of nature. And the idea is that we have done quite a bit in terms of destabilizing the environment in which we depend on for survival. And what it says is that we have an opportunity to make different choices. It does not mean that it has to remain that way. And so I put something that I wanted to use this for illustration, that in red, and I thought about the house in which I live in. If you think about the houses that we live in at home, Ghana, Accra in particular, has this breeze that comes from the ocean in the morning and in the evening and most of the day. But when you see the design of our houses, where the breeze is supposed to come from, that is where the war is. And it sounds simple, but that's where the war is. So we cross the breeze from coming in, and then we put on the air conditioning. And then we complain that the electricity is expensive. Those are small choices in the design of the houses that we have And then it again takes away the consumption that we would have used for something else and put it into air conditioning. Now, in terms of the choices that we can have is in the design, the architects, but also the people who demand for the houses, in terms of saying, look, I would like to have something that is better, where I live with the nature rather than live against the nature. For the local authorities, the ones who are approving the plans, those are opportunities that are there to allow us to say, okay, if it does not live with the environment, maybe we won't approve it. For the development planning processes, maybe that's also, so there are many small opportunities that we can use to be able to actually do something that is meaningful. It's not completely rocket science, and it is not that we stop the consumption of, for example, if we do that, it still means that we shall still have a house. Next slide. So, one of the findings of the report is that when, so in the past 30 years, we have developed the Human Development Index, and for example, taken account of gender differences, but also take account of inequalities. This year, we are taking into account the differences in planetary pressure, the pressure we are putting on the planet. And as you see from the chart, there's the Human Development Index value, and then there is the planetary pressure adjusted on the vertical side. And what you see is that those red things that you see are those countries that have low Human Development Index. Those in the middle, in yellow, have medium, and then we have the green, which have the high. If that line that goes through, if you are not putting pressure on the planet, your country is on that line. Fortunately, for many countries, like Angela said, in Africa, are very close to the line. Most of the developed countries are way off the line. And in fact, some of the countries drop, like Australia, I think drops like 74 places in human development once you take into account the pressure they are putting on the environment. Next slide. And these are now the numbers, what that says. And you can see Ghana, ROS is only 1.6%. But that doesn't mean that we should not do anything. That simply means that it is an opportunity for us to influence future investments in such a way that we actually don't lose human development, like the very high who are losing about 15%. Next slide. And I guess I got this tweet from our boss in New York, and basically what she's saying is that, look, for the first time, Africa is always considered to be poor. For the first time, we are doing better than many of the developed countries. And it is not an opportunity to celebrate and say, okay, we are not going to do anything. But actually, and she says, African countries are scoring better than developed nations on the new planetary adjusted human development report. This should be recognized and credited through new international support measures. So that is an investment opportunity that we can take advantage of. Next. The mechanisms, I have explained to them a little using the housing example. social norms and values, incentives and regulation, nature-based solutions. And I explained simply by treating the design of the housing so that you live with the breeze that is coming from the ocean instead of living against it. That is a norm that we can actually do it. And we can reinforce that with some kind of regulation that is that. And then the nature-based solutions, I mean, you already addressing the nature-based solution, already addressing the idea that in the house is hot, so you need to cool it by using the breeze that is coming in. And you can look at many examples beyond that. Next. So in the end, these are the same issues, simply to say that we have the opportunity, and Ghana is in a good place because you already have, you are entering into a phase where you are doing your own national development planning processes. This is an opportunity that we can use. I think the whole idea is that it is for everybody to do something, but government will have to provide the lead. And so it is very, very, in the end, it will be very important that as we continue also, we strengthen our measurement and so that, for example, the Ghana Statistical Service can be able to help and get these numbers properly and help inform the direction we take. I think that should be the last. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mugisha, for taking us through the key findings of the report. And the last conclusion emphasized that it is time for us to act now to chart a new pathway. At this moment, we want to hear from you. We want to give the floor to you to share your thoughts and your perspectives on the findings. And we'll be starting with our key discussants. We have key discussants, and after that, all of us contribute to the conversation. As Angela said, she is here looking forward to the choices that we will propose to move Ghana to a more sustainable pathway. To help us with the discussion is the economic analyst of UNDP Ghana, Ms. Sylvia Senu. Please join me to welcome Sylvia.
Good morning to you all. Thank you, Praise, for that brilliant moderation. Yesterday, it was really a big pleasure to be part of the global launch of this event, of this report, I have to say. In that meeting, the launch was hosted by Sweden. And in that meeting, we had key speakers. We had the Crown Princess of Victoria of Sweden. We had the Prime Minister of Barbados and other very key speakers, including our own UNDP administrator, Akim Steiner. And I wanted to share some of the key things I picked from that meeting with you. One of the key things I picked is the fact that inequality works against human development. So when we are developing and we are not being considerate of what we are leaving behind, of the differences we are creating, we are working against ourselves, and we are waging wars against, humanity. And one final point I would like to make from the key points I picked from the minister from Barbados is the fact that we need moral and ethical leadership to make a difference. And I was really excited about this key point because we've been on a journey and trajectory of development where we do not really consider morals and ethics. But here in this report, there's the highlight of the fact that to make the difference, we need to choose differently. To make the difference, we need to be morally, apt, and then we need to give that ethical leadership to cause the change that needs to happen. I am delighted to move us into this next segment of our meeting, where we are going to have key discussants share with us their perspectives on the report. The first to come is Professor Gordon. I'm sure probably he is not new to many of us in this room, but permit me to give a little introduction. Okay, so in short, he doesn't want an introduction, but for those who do not know him, please note that he's the director of the Institute of Environment and Sanitation Studies College of Basic and Applied Sciences at the University of Ghana. So please, with a warm welcome, let's welcome Professor Gordon.
Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Somebody who doesn't drink alcohol, I now have to carry alcohol with me everywhere. Thank you for putting the presentation up. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very honored that UNDP have asked me to be a discussant for this very important report. I'd like to pick up on a few points made by some of the previous speakers. And one is the issue of planetary pressure. And planetary pressure, the pressure that we put on the planet, is something serious. But then we also have to remember there's something that we refer to as planetary boundaries. The place or point beyond which we cannot go. And for many of the 9 established indices of planetary boundaries, we've already exceeded what the planet can manage. So we are approaching a tipping point where once we cross sufficient of these indices, we will not have a way back. The time to act is now, and I was very interested to read the report because they focused on stewardship, equity, and innovation. And if you read the small print, you find that it is much to do about participation, it's much to do about ownership. So it is actually a report that is very human-centered, as the resident rep of UNDP said in her remarks. It also has issues to do with ownership, but it also has issues which relate to knowledge. Now, most Ghanaians will be familiar with the story of Kweku Anansi and the Pot of Wisdom, where Kweku Anansi managed to gather all the wisdom in the world and put it in a pot, and decided that he was not going to share that knowledge. So he was going to hide it in the top of a palm tree. And he put that pot on his stomach and was trying to climb, and he kept on falling down. Then his little son beside him, called Intikuma, said, "Father, why don't you put it at your back? Then you can climb." And Kweku Anansi was so annoyed by the fact that his little son had told him something that he didn't realize himself. He took the pot of knowledge and threw it on the ground, and that's how knowledge spread throughout the world. Some people from other parts of the world have bear rabbit stories, and they all started from Ghana with Kweku Anansi. But the fact is that we have to understand we do not know it all. And sometimes the so-called experts do not know it all. One definition of a professor is somebody who knows more and more about less and less until he knows everything about nothing. We are too focused. We need to change our approach in solving problems. So, in the document, the goal is to unlock transformations and support countries to have a high human development that does not cost the earth. And the CARES document that I saw has a number of key enablers, but none of those key enablers looked at the issue of natural capital. And I think this is an oversight. So I am framing this that in the document you have a chapter on nature-based solutions, which is very exhaustive, and we have to link that with the CARES program. The budget for that is 100 billion. It sounds a lot, but if you break that 100 billion over the project period, over the time period and over the population of Ghana, it works out to less than 50 cents per day per person. So it's not a lot of money. There are 6 elements of the CARES program: manufacturing and industry, technology and digital economy, fast-track digitization, develop Ghana's housing and construction industry, optimize implementation of ongoing flagships, i.e. one factory, one district, etc., one district, one factory, and establish Ghana as a regional hub. And all of these areas are areas in which we can use nature to help us. What we need, first of all, is a radical change in the attitudes that we have when it comes to dealing with development. I'm glad to say that the last point, Ghana as a regional hub, Ghana is already recognized with Rwanda and Mauritius as one of those countries where we can have e-government being rolled out comparatively easily. But you cannot just deal with those two things. You have to add another dimension, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are actually currently what Ghana has decided to use as its approach, not only for spending, but also for development. And again, all those goals can contribute to us increasing our HDI, at the same time dealing with the Ghana CARES program. It's, as I said, a question of how do we change the way we look at things. So, the big issue is that we need to build back better. Fortunately or unfortunately, COVID has not impacted the lives of Ghanaians sufficiently. When you drive around Accra, or even outside Accra, you find that people do not wear masks. The sanitizers are there, Veronica buckets are there, but there's still not an appreciation of the magnitude of COVID. Over 300,000 deaths in the US, which is, I believe, more than most of the wars put together since the Second World War that they have faced. COVID is a huge problem, and it's not going to go away. I do not think we are taking it seriously. Now, that diagram there is from the world in 2050. So we are looking at the post-2030 agenda. And at the top, unfortunately, if I use the pointer here, the people can't see, but at the top there's a vision, sustainable future. And those, that diagram with the red and blue are the 9 planetary boundaries that we are all aiming for. And the lines there, the purple to the green, are different trajectories that we can choose. And these are based on the sort of decisions that governments make. So we have a number of markers beyond 2030 and beyond 2050. We have 2057, Ghana at 100. We have the AU agenda, the Africa we want, at 2063. Ghana has always been below the 100 rank in the HDI. We have never crossed that. And it is because we are doing business as usual. You cannot have transformation unless you actually embrace transformation in all its aspects, including how we educate, how we implement, and what we value. Currently, we tend to value wealth more than sense, but that is a whole different thing. That is a 5-hour lecture, but I won't go there. But if we're going to build back better, we need to invest. We need to invest in the right sort of things that will give us the trajectory that will achieve the SDGs and go beyond. So my comment here is, we have 10 points. We should leave no one behind, but we should also let nobody wait. Without women on board, we are doomed. We tend to underestimate the value of having an educated female population and how it changes a nation. All those countries which have in the top HDI, the 1 to 10, the Norways, the Finlands, the Singapores, et cetera, highly educated female workforce. The third point, Accra is not Ghana. There's a huge difference between what happens in Accra and what happens outside Accra. And those in Accra, and I'm hoping that our new UNDP resident rep will have the opportunity to travel to see the real Ghana. It's a different culture, different value systems, different lines of authority. You can be a big man here in Accra, but when you go to the village and you're going to see the village chief, you have to bend down. The digital divide is real. Prof, you referred to the fact that a number of children have lost out because of COVID. And I don't know how many requests I have had over the past months for credit from people that I know. Oh, my son needs to do online course. He needs credit. It's expensive. The cost of our internet access is so many times higher than in places like Korea or the US. The bandwidth is small and the internet speeds are slow. All of that combines in making some people more disadvantaged than others. We need to value traditional knowledge, the knowledge that has been gathered through centuries of observation of the natural world cannot just be thrown out. There's wisdom with our indigenous groups of people. In Ghana, we're all indigenous, but the traditional knowledge is there. We need to support citizen science to instill the fact that everybody can contribute to knowledge, and one person's knowledge is not better than the other. Even if it's bad knowledge, that will help us know what good knowledge is. We need to base our policies on evidence. Some of the policies we have in this country, unfortunately, are not harmonized with the reality on the ground. And we don't have sufficient evidence because we don't deal with the 8th point there. We do not fund research. Our research is being funded mainly by external groups, donor agencies, other governments, and so forth. And many a time, they have their own agenda in the sort of research they want you to carry out. Sometimes because they want their citizens to come to Ghana and carry out the research. And we need to promote critical thinking and innovation. We do not get that by beating our children in primary schools, by letting them recite facts, some of which are even wrong, but we drum it into their heads. We need to teach them how to question and how to assess. If we had that really ingrained into our culture, we wouldn't have some of the election issues that we are having now. And certainly, if the leader of the free world took the same position, the world would be a much better place. And the last point I'd like to make here is the youth are literally our future. Please, my facts, I think it's approximately 60% of the population is under 18. I'm not sure of the exact figure, but a huge population mass, the youth bulge, is there. These are the people who are going to be our future leaders, decision makers, and until we address them and how we train them, they will not be ready to lead the nation in 20 years' time, or in 10 years' time even. We need something that is African-led, African-owned, in this case Ghana-owned and Ghana-led. I believe we have the ability to do that. I was going to start this discussion with a children's rhyme, which we are taught in school. There was an old woman who swallowed a fly. We don't know why, but she swallowed a fly. Then she swallowed a spider. Then she swallowed a mouse. Then she swallowed a cat. Then she swallowed a dog. And I think she finally swallowed a horse. Basically, if that old woman had a mosquito net on her window, she wouldn't have had that fly to swallow in the first place. Sometimes small things can prevent big consequences. And we know what happened to the old woman. She was dead, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for those words of wisdom. I think that those 10 key points really are reflective of the kind of things the report is suggesting. So we move to our next discussant. Our next discussant is a lady, a powerful lady. I'm not sure many of you know her, but I'm very happy to introduce to you Madame Ruka Sanusi. She is the Executive Director of the Ghana Climate Innovation Center at Ashesi University. She has many years of experience in terms of her advisory roles for businesses, and she's actually promoting green businesses. So her center is incubating and developing businesses for them to be greener and then for them to be cleaner. Please, she's going to share with us her perspectives on how we can relate the report to growing green businesses. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Let me first start by thanking the UNDP for inviting me to provide some remarks from the private sector's perspectives on the 2020 HG report. It's a tall order, given that the report was embargoed until yesterday. But in the time that I've had to read the report, I will now provide some contextual remarks aligned to the values and principles of this year's HG report. Let me also just recognize my fellow discussants. Professor Gordon, it's always lovely to see you, and it's a huge privilege to actually be speaking alongside you. I consider him like a professional godfather, so I'm a little nervous speaking after him. Prof, please root for me, right? Okay, I think it was in November 1975 that Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, they released a defining single entitled "Wake Up Everybody." The song was written at a time of high unemployment, racial tensions, social and economic hardships, and environmental degradation. And it spoke to the gross imbalances of power and opportunity of the time. The song, like the HG report that is being launched today, called for all countries, rich and poor, to redesign their paths for human progress by fully accounting for the dangerous pressures that we put on the planet. Today, almost 50 years on, we continue to articulate the charge for our community of global citizens, their respective governments, and the international community of development and financial institutions to seize the opportunity to unlock transformation that will strengthen our social and planetary systems so that people and planet prosper together. To quote from the report, humans have achieved incredible things, but we have taken the earth to the brink, and yet there is no planet B. At the entrance of the Ghana Climate Innovation Center's offices at Ashesi University, T.T. Williams' quote is inscribed, and it says, "The eyes of the future are looking back at us, and they're praying for us to see beyond our own time." That quote is a constant reminder of our core beliefs and values. At the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, we believe that one resounding truth that our world faces, a categorical truth of our times, is that in climate change, in environmental and ecological degradation, we are facing one of the world's greatest threats, a man-made disaster at a global scale. So currently, our world is hurting in unimaginable ways. The IMF has called COVID-19 a crisis like no other, and recommends that policymakers green their responses to prevent one crisis leading to another. That's the notion of prioritizing the economy and the ecology together, people and planet together. But greening responses isn't just the responsibility of policymakers and governments. Businesses in Africa, whether big or small, should also be making sustainable development and ESG principles which secure our planet, even as we enjoy it, a priority as well. Without exception, every country in the world is experiencing the devastating effects of climate change on our planet. If left unchecked, climate change, exacerbated by COVID-19, will reverse the progress made over, and is reversing, actually, if you listen to some of the previous speakers, the progress made over the past years in development, and stands to undermine efforts to achieve the SDGs.
Critically, within the context of our continent, African economies and businesses are the most fragile and least able to respond to endogenous as well as exogenous shocks. As a continent, therefore, we will benefit from more intentional planning and actions to create a sustainably prosperous social and economic development path. For human development at the expense of the planet is not development at all. Ghana, like all countries in the world, is taking bold steps to recover from the impact of COVID-19. But it was only a year ago that Ghana had one of the world's fastest growing GDP growth rates, some 8.8%. Economically, 2019 was a good year for Ghana. Expanding crude oil production and rising prices placed Ghana at the top of the GDP growth tables. But Ghana's CO2 emissions per capita have also grown. They have done so at an average rate of over 4% since 1999, in line with a trend in many African countries where per capita emissions have seen a rapid rise over the past 5 years. We could do better to reverse that rapid rise. And I quote from the Haiti report to say, too often, the incentives and regulations that influence our decision-making promote rather than prevent planetary damage. That is why our center, at the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, our work is at the nexus of climate change, private enterprise, economic development, and ecological prosperity. Our work is at the heart of business activity and sustainable development. We proffer a different approach to commercial activity and a different premise in innovation, a premise which pays attention to enterprise agility, one which prioritizes the planet, climate-smart innovation, clean technology, and circularity. Ghana, like the rest of the world, needs more widespread, innovative, nature-based solutions to accelerate socioeconomic development and ecological prosperity. Manufacturing and consumer patterns, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the homes we live in, the products we use, all contribute to making our precious planet warmer. Our manufacturing processes involve the use of plastic, steel, cement, all of which contribute to climate change. The refrigerant inside the AC units that cool our homes, our offices, this very room where we are all seated, is a greenhouse gas. It takes 2,700 liters of water to make one cotton shirt, just one cotton shirt. That's what one person drinks in 2.5 years. Making and washing one pair of jeans, just one pair of jeans, emits the same CO2 as driving 69 miles. Some food for thought there for us all. So this kind of manufacturing and consumer patterns begs for innovation and breakthroughs in how we live, how we eat, how we make things, how we fuel our cars, how we power our homes, and offers new significant opportunities to boost economic growth, create jobs, and boost innovation. That is why the Human Development Report calls for a reorientation of social norms and values, new social norms and values to empower people to live and work to expand human freedoms while easing pressure on the planet. African countries are resource rich, but there's need for deeper access to capital, technology, and the necessary innovation that will enable the continent to leapfrog development without risk to the planet. There is an urgent need to think and to do ahead in Ghana and the rest of Africa, including the implementation of bold incentives to regulatory reforms, to regulatory frameworks to boost the business sector and catalyze investments in the green and the blue economy. Ghanaian businesses will fail to secure commercial gains if they only focus on growing their financial bottom line. Our businesses will need to future-proof their enterprises by embracing practices that work with the planet and not against it. This should be a main priority of our CEOs as well as their boards. There does not need to be a trade-off between one, economic growth and job creation, and two, economic growth, job creation, and sustainable green development. And so I return to the quote by T.T. Williams. The eyes of the future are looking back at us, and they're praying for us to see beyond our own time. The truth is that we can choose to at least slow down, if not reverse, the global disaster that is threatening our planet. Ghana is well positioned to lead in effective protection, sustainable consumption, and equitable prosperity. We can choose to make a difference. But each country must chart its own transition to a sustainable low-carbon economy. But the longer any country or continent delays such a transition, the more costly it will be in the long term. The businesses that will thrive when tomorrow comes are those that plan today to link planetary, social, and economic balance. Businesses that are climate smart, and businesses that are sustainability conscious in their strategies and their operations. So it is time to build a new land, and it is also time to teach a new way. Business as usual will simply not work. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity for humanity to choose to change. Because if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? Because the world won't get better if we just let it be. We have to choose to change it, all of us here seated. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Ruka Sanusi. Those were really profound words. Our next discussant is Dr. Priscilla Chubesi-Barfor. She is a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. Her specializations are in the areas of labor, markets, education, inequality, and development. She's going to give us some perspectives and critique the Human Development Report we are launching. Please, let's welcome Dr. Priscilla Chubesi-Barfor.
Good morning. Let me stand on all protocol that has already been observed and use the opportunity to thank UNDP for the invitation to share my views on the report with my background as an academic. So for the first time in centuries, humanity needs to shape the planet instead of the planet shaping us. This has become critical due to various warning signals that the planet has been putting out there, which we have been oblivious of, from climate change to the current pandemic that we are all living through. This UNDP Human Development Report, titled The Next Frontier, Human Development and the Anthropocene, lays bare compelling evidence that we need to change. The question is, when? What do we do in this new age? And to answer this question, it is against the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic and the consistent threats of new pandemic due to planetary pressures, which is calling for humanity to pull the brakes and chart a new course as we thrive for development, to live in harmony with the planet. Undoubtedly, economic growth is important to all countries, and it's a necessary condition for development, Particularly for developing countries, rising income levels is crucial for those living in poverty. This notwithstanding, the environmental impact of economic growth can no longer be ignored. Such environmental impacts include increased consumption of non-renewable resources, higher levels of pollution, global warming, and the potential loss of environmental habitats. Evidently, material resources matter when fairly distributed within planetary boundaries. Hence, the advocacy for a composite index that combines economic, social, and environmental dimensions, and this the report makes quite clear. There is increasing consensus, which is rightfully captured in the 2019 Human Development Report, as is emphasized the fact that important questions for many countries are not about the overall size of the pie, which is economic growth, but the relative sizes of the slices. And in effect, we are looking at the level of inequalities that we live with as a generation. Indeed, one of the greatest achievements of humanity in this generation is lifting about 1 billion people out of poverty. But it is, however, feared that COVID pandemic may have pushed a little over 1 million people into extreme poverty. So evidently, this is the worst setback in a century. And this is shown in the anticipated downward trend of all human development indicators for the first time in 30 years, as all its composites, such as education, health, and income, have all been adversely affected due to the COVID pandemic. So for a resource-rich nation and dependent nation like Ghana, what is the way forward? How do we recover from the negative impact of COVID pandemic and build a prosperous nation that is in harmony with the planet? How can we effectively harness resource without devastating the planet for future generations? COVID has indeed exposed inherent vulnerabilities and inequalities that exist in our country, particularly in the area of employment, education, health, and livelihoods. And when I talk about education, as at now, since March this year, a lot of children have been at home with no contact with their teachers whatsoever. The other divide, which is the privileged part, have also been in classroom, in various platforms. So that clearly shows us the level of inequality that exists in our country in terms of education. The Ghana COVID Alleviation and Revitalization Enterprise, which is Ghana CARES program, according to governments, it's Ghana Beyond Aid in Action. It is hoped that through the implementation of the program, the economy will be stabilized and restored to pre-COVID levels. Essentially, the program is in two parts. The first was from July to December, which looked at stabilization, as at the time all the odds were uncertain. And the second phase is revitalization and transformation, which is hoped to take effect from 2021 to 2023. Essentially, the second phase focuses on investment in activities that are aimed at accelerating Ghana Beyond Aid through deepening our efforts at industrialization by focusing on light manufactures, strengthen agricultural production, and leverage the siting of the Secretariat of African Continental Free Trade Area in Ghana. As the country tries to recover from the significant negative economic impact of COVID, because thankfully we did not experience the harsh health implications that others are going through. The conversation going forward should be on how we create opportunities for all to flourish through equitable distribution of resources while carefully navigating a new era that is mindful of planetary boundaries. Finally, the report redirects the debate on the quest for growth and development by this generation to think about the kind of legacy we want to leave behind for future generations. It is time for us to pause and think of ways to chart a new course to development, effect the change we want. It is the responsibility of government and policymakers, and for us in academia, to find ways to navigate this unfamiliar territory of Anthropocene and take advantage of opportunities that the planet's opportunities with planet harmony with us in the backdrop. And clearly, technological advancement and innovation present opportunities for us as a developing country to take advantage of. And this, the report is very succinct on it. Thank you very much for the opportunity and your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Priscilla. We'll quickly move into our next discussant. Our next discussant is Stephen Apim Darko. He is a senior planning analyst at the National Development Planning Commission. He's a social policy analyst with focuses on education, sports, and youth development. He's holding the fort for Dr. Felix Adoyobo, who was not able to make it to this meeting. He is going to share with us perspectives of the human development report in relation to planning processes in Ghana. So please, let's welcome Stephen Apim Darko.
Thank you. Let me also stand on all protocols observed. Madam Angela, Prof, and ladies and gentlemen, we, the Commission, appreciate the opportunity given to us to share our thoughts on this year's Human Development Index report. Before we move on, we also appreciate and also acknowledge that we are really, really much grateful to have such report at this time, because we are currently developing the next policy framework for the 2022 to 2025, which we believe it's really going to help us to fine-tune what we really need to do and where actually what we have to prioritize as we move on to our next planning cycle. We therefore said we are so happy to state that over the 30 years ago, the AGI, which has started some 30 years ago, has succeeded in shaping our priorities, that is the development priorities, and promoted a healthy competition among countries. The index has also evolved over the years to reflect other perspectives of development and taking account the important dimension of our development. The annual progress report, which is mostly generated every year, as well as what was stated in the report, indicates that since the 90s, we have made Ghana, as I stated, has made good progress in the economic and social development of the ADR. But we also attest that there is an increasing disparities across the inequalities and income groups. Inequality is also worsening, as stated, and bridging the gender gap is also proving what? Difficult or a challenge. The effect of the development on the environment, including biodiversity, has been difficult to track due to inadequate and comprehensive data. And this one area need to work on to enhance evidence-based decision-making. So we are currently being supported by UNDP to develop a recovery plan, and also and we've selected some 5 districts. And to be very, very sincere with you, this is one of the areas that we are finding difficult to get data to really make what to enhance evidence-based decision making, and also to recommend what we can do. In terms of the governance, the index has been very useful, and the AGI, despite its limitation, is useful too. And we believe that Ghana will derive benefit from it if we are able to generate a similar index at the regional and the district level. So this is where our aim is. This will also enhance the hidden picture behind the national progress and will help us to also to do what we call group targeting. The name is, that is COVID-19 has also exposed our economy and social vulnerabilities to shock and are likely to see a decline mostly in the development index status. In the words of our president, that's His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, said COVID-19 has given us the opportunity to recreate our country and doing something meaningful. So we expect that the post-COVID recovery action will be at our peril if we do not pay critical attention to the environment. And this will be like a person working to meet his or her needs while neglecting the homes he lives in. And we have only one home, one planet, and if you continue to ignore it, it will very soon collapse on us. Thank you very much for this short message, and we hope to have it.
Thank you, Stephen, for those words. Indeed, we need a lot of disaggregated data to go a bit to the districts to calculate the Human Development Index for different districts. And then, you know, because at UNDP, as you may know, we've done this before, but it was really a challenge to get the district level data to support such studies. So that's a great call. At this instance, it's time for us to discuss and engage. You've been hearing quite a bit from our discussants with great presentations and perspectives. We now want to open the floor to take questions, to take comments, but of course, given the time constraint, we would like for you to keep it brief and succinct. So I have some microphone going around. Please, let's see by hands, then we can give you the opportunity to ask the question. Any question, comments, contribution is welcome. Prof, you have a question? And then please bring the mic. Yes, absolutely.
My question goes to UNDP. Are there plans to produce a short summary of the document, and will that document be translated into local language? Thank you.
Well taken question. We'll get back on that. Can we have any other hands? Questions, comments, contributions are welcome. Do I see your hand? Yeah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Susan Mensa, and I'm with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. This is a question for Prof. Gordon. In his presentation, I think there were 5 different areas that he said we should look forward to focusing on. One was, I think, traditional leadership. Was that the one? Something about traditional leadership. I just wanted to know how he envisaged that we can bring them more on board. I think in terms of sustainability, ownership, all the things that have been mentioned, and knowledge, indigenous knowledge, engaging traditional leadership is really vital. But I think it's very difficult because of the structures are not in place. So I'm just wondering from Professor Gordon's perspective how he thinks we can harness traditional leadership.
Thank you. Yes. We'll come to that. Let's take a couple more. Adam, please, there's a hand here. Great.
Thank you. Just taking from where Prof ended, picking from where Prof ended, and also coming from his presentation, he made it clear that Accra is not Ghana. So my question is, where are you going to, is there any plans to disseminate this report at the local level?
Okay. Any further questions, please? Comments, suggestions? Warmly welcome. Yes.
Thank you very much. This is just a contribution. I think from all the presentations, they are very clear and straight to the point. But I think an issue of shared attitude is one thing that has to actually run through, that we have to think. Living simply right from the corporate sector to the household level is very, very important if we want to actually live within planetary boundaries. I would like to know if UNDP have a strategy to actually launch a campaign on living simply in Ghana so that we can actually make sure we actualize all these things. Without that approach, it might be very, very difficult for us to actually live within the boundaries that we're talking about.
Thank you.
So that is a contribution.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, so I think we can take this for now and then probably come back for a last round of questions. Okay, so Prof, I think you have 2 questions. Okay, microphone, please. Please bring the microphone to Prof. So, traditional leadership, how we can harness traditional leadership. And then, which are the... Okay. The 5 areas of focus, it boils down from there. So it's really one.
Yeah, that was bundled with traditional
leadership, yeah.
But I'll also comment on the shared attitude.
Yes,
shared attitude. So thank you for the question. And first of all, I think we have to appreciate that traditional authority, so I'm including the chiefs, the paramount chiefs, the queen mothers, the elders, is changing in Ghana now. We're getting more and more chiefs who are holding doctorates in different subjects and so forth, and are, in quotes, more aware or more enlightened beyond what happens in their particular community or village. So I think this is something that is going to happen whether we like it or not. There's going to be a change. But I believe that that change could be more proactive. But you have to ask, why are some of our traditional authorities so recalcitrant when it comes to moving things forward? And my response is, follow the money. There's a lot of money in chieftaincy if you know how to make it. And some of that money is, in quotes, I don't want to use the word illegal, but it is not personal wealth. It is wealth of the community which is now being captured by a few. And I believe if we control that, then the incentive for people who are not development-minded to take up these positions would go down. Right now, we do not have people who are going in because they feel responsible to the community, but because of what they can get out of it. And if we can change that dynamic, then I think the way we view chiefs, the way chiefs interact, will be very different. Now, a question was raised about, or not, a comment about the issue of attitude. And I once posed a question to a class, PhD students, what defines a Ghanaian? And if you say that of a Japanese, they'll say maybe politeness. If you say that of a Swiss, they'll say timeliness. If you say that of an Italian, maybe love of pasta. I don't know, but there's something that defines a nation. What defines us as a nation right now? And the words that come immediately to your mind are not the best of words. So we need to change. You know, the first problem you have to pass is denial. Ghanaians think they're better than everybody else. But the fact is that we are not. We need to understand that we need to change our attitude to wealth, to knowledge, to many things. The Finns have got a very advanced educational system, the Finnish people, and they have a word that defines them. It's either susi or sisu, which means persistence. They will not give up. Do we have a word that defines us? A positive word that defines us in Ghana? Now, I challenge somebody to come up with that something that we'd all universally accept. Because if we know who we are and what we stand for, then we can deal with the issue of attitudes and behavior. But right now, we don't have that. Thank you.
Wow. Yes. So please, let's pass the mic to Dr. Freddie Mugisha is going to take us on the plans to have the short summary of the report, and then whether we'll have a Living Simply campaign in Ghana.
You said a living what?
Simply living. I mean, living simply.
Okay.
Simple in all aspects of life.
Okay. So the first question on whether we are going to have whether we're going to have a version for Ghana, the answer is yes. We actually already have something that is there, but we will improve on it so that it reflects some of these things that we are talking about. And I guess it is also possible that we can translate in a few languages so that we can be able to share. In terms of whether we will have a dissemination at the regional level, I think we will have our plan is to have series of conversations. And my sense is that since you said Accra is not Ghana, I think we have a responsibility to go beyond Ghana and have those conversations. I just wanted also to comment on the shared attitude. I want to put it in kind of a different way. I wonder if you ask not just Ghanaians, but Africans, and you say, what do you want the rest of the world to define you as? Or then they will tell you something very, very positive. If you ask, how do Africans define themselves? Then they'll tell you probably a negative attitude, a negative concept. And so having lived in Ghana here, it's as good as living anywhere. And so we also have to begin to say, look, this is to project the positive that we have. Even if the negatives exist, they don't necessarily have to define us.
Thank you. I think those are profound. I mean, not letting your negatives define you. So you may have negatives, but looking beyond the negatives and probably projecting the positives while you work on the negatives. But definitely acknowledging the negatives and then working on them, it's also a sure way to go. Shall we take our next round of questions, suggestions, commentary? If not, then we can close the session. Any hands, please? Okay, I see no hands. So that presumes, and I can comfortably assume that we are all clear in our minds what the report represents and the way forwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, for moderating the discussion session for us. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are gradually coming to the end of the program. And it's time for us to launch the reports. We will invite our resident representative, Dr. Angela Lusigi, back to the stage to do us the honor to officially declare the report launched in Ghana for action to begin. Let's welcome her.
Thank you very much, Praise, and thank you very much, Sylvia, and all the colleagues for the good job that you've done. And honestly, this has been a very good discussion. There's so many ideas that have come up that we would like to take forward, and all the team is here to be able to take it forward. But there's three things that caught my attention from this discussion. One was around the fact that when we're talking about leadership, we're not just talking about the government leadership, we're also talking about private sector leadership, we're also talking about community leadership. So going forward, this is one of the critical areas that we need to work on, looking at accountability, transparency, and incentives. The second area that we looked at is the fact that right now is the time to make the choice to have a low carbon development pathway. In order to do that, we need to plan for it, we need to invest in it, and we need to look at the enabling conditions for that to happen. So that is clearly a big area of work for us going forward in partnership. And then the final area that was very interesting was about tracking progress. Right, with what we heard about the census coming up, there's a significant opportunity to get the kind of data that we need to be able to inform the processes, and the evidence around what is happening to the planet is a very big part of that. And also around the attitudes that we need to be able to have sustainable consumption practices. So a lot of food for thought. Thank you so very much for your contributions. So at this point in time, I would like to invite everybody who's contributed to the discussion. I'll start with you, Prof. Please come up, and all the discussants, so that we can have a good opportunity to launch the report together. And I hope you noticed that we had a gender-balanced panel. Yes. So. Colleagues, it gives me such great pleasure to be able to launch this report jointly.
Sorry, excuse me. I need to put on my mask.
It gives me great pleasure to officially declare the report launched in Ghana. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, no, we do that.
Yes. Thank you. you very much, Angela, and all our discussants. Mugisha, for doing us the honor to declare the 2020 Human Development Report launched in Ghana. All too soon, we've come to the end of the program, and I'm very happy that we are on time. We have all heard the discussions. The key messages from the report are clear. We are destroying the very nature that gives us the survivor. And it is time for us all to take actions to protect the planet. The report gave us 3 recommendations: the need for us all to scale up nature-based solutions, the need to promote incentives and regulations, and also the need for us to change social norms and values. The messages are clear, and I'm sure we will continue the discussion during lunch. We want to use this opportunity to thank our online viewers, those on Zoom and the UNDP Ghana Facebook page for joining us to launch this report in Ghana. Thanks so much for your time with us, and thanks to all our participants. We know we are not in normal time, but you have honored our invitation, and we are very grateful to have you. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. We move for lunch, and I'm sure we will be directed by Adam and Mariana. And let's continue the discussions. And as our resident representatives say, this is just the beginning of the discussion in Ghana to take action to protect our planet and people. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks a lot.